Hey everybody, welcome back to the Kitchen Table Podcast. Coming back to you today in the original Kitchen Table Podcast studios. We're in Matt's house. And
shout out Matt Stumpo.
Yeah, shout out. Thank you for letting us use the room, and feels good to be back home.
Yeah,
you know?
Significant amount of wires and stuff. Ryan always handles the technology of things. So as I look around the table, there's microphones, wires, video camera. It literally looks like an OnlyFans setup.
Well, we got the flashing lights over here. I think we could change colors.
We won't be taking our shirts off or anything. No one wants that.
But today's episode, we got to give a shout out to our sponsors, Flame Decon, Tara, doing amazing stuff, working her ass off every single day. Making sure that we're safe.
Absolutely. Tara's been so huge for us here on the Kitchen Table Podcast.
For sure.
We're in contact with Tara pretty regularly.
Daily, pretty much.
We actually have a group chat with her. It's the three of us, and it says KTP and the Smoking Hot Redhead. So we talk to Tara quite frequently, and like Ryan said, the work she's doing in the fire service with the, cancer and decon, and that's all of our charge, and to have someone not actively in the fire service doing that is fantastic.
They care so much about it too.
Plus she gives us a discount code.
Yeah, that's right. That code is KTP15 and you get 15% off.
Yep. We'll shout out our other sponsor, Axehead Threads. Axehead Threads, Central Indiana owned, firefighter owned and operated. We do embroidery, screen print, you name it, apparel throughout the United States, clothing allowance orders. We work with quartermasters. We get your uniforms, but more importantly, we also Axehead Threads provides company morale, pride in your station, and we need more of that. So
for sure.
Shout out to Axehead.
Best in the game right now. Charge the Line Design. He's doing great things over there. You want those cups that we all love? Throw your stickers on, throw a logo on. He's got you. With another code, KTP15, you get 15% off. He's over there crushing it too. He's, I bought my crew. That's where I got the Christmas presents from.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I did whiskey glasses.
Yeah,
I did tumblers.
I did beer steins.
Yeah. So, shout out Brian with Charge the Line Designs. We appreciate him coming on board. And, again, you're going to see a common theme with the Kitchen Table Podcast. It's firefighter owned and operated business.
That's what we care about.
The exception to that is a firefighter friendly business. Our main sponsor, one of the people been with us since day one, 1-800 Board Up. Anybody who's ever been through a house fire, they know how important the board up is, securing the scene when you're done. So 1-800 Board Up, main sponsor for us. They do a lot of great stuff. They basically opened their facility to us. We toured it. We had a great time. But more importantly, 1-800 Board Up's mission is to take care of the people after the worst fire of their life, after the worst thing that happened to their house. So 1-800 Board Up, simple onboarding process. They even have an app now. I went through their dispatch when I had a working fire a couple of months ago. I went through their dispatch, and they sent a crew out within 15 minutes, which is a big help to those homeowners. So shout out 1-800 Board Up. We appreciate you.
And then we have a new sponsor.
Yeah,
don't we?
So
it's our last sponsor, I promise.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of sponsors, but the thing about our sponsors is they don't, 1-800 Board Up takes care of us, Tara takes care of us, Axehead takes care of us, Charge the Line, all of you name it. But more importantly, they don't pay us for sponsorships.
No.
Our main mission is to provide insight into these companies to get to our listeners. Ridgeway Leatherworks out of New Jersey. Rob, one of the greatest people I've ever met in my life. I always say, and I don't want to offend our guest because he's all the way in Cali, but New Jersey has some of the best firemen I've ever been around in my life. I met Rob Meyer very early on, and man, he set the bar so high. And I got promoted to battalion chief, and very first thing he did was send me a strap. Didn't charge me a dime. So Ridgeway Leatherworks, he is ridiculously busy, but he's churning out some of the best leather in the business. So
awesome.
Suspenders, radio straps,
chin straps,
you name it. Rob's putting it out, and more importantly, he's a family man and a fireman. So those are the KTP sponsors.
Absolutely. Well, Tony, I mean, you kind of hinted on who we have on as a guest today. We have Trevor Williams with the Williams key from Los Angeles, California, and it sounds like he's been sounds like they've been getting a lot of rain over there.
So early on, before we hit the record button, I said it never rains in Southern California. And apparently he told us that it's been raining for a week.
For a week now.
You get to a certain age in your life when the very first thing you talk to a brother about is the weather where they're at.
That's right.
So we are jazzed to have Trevor on. He sent us a Williams key with our with the KTP logo on it. I know Ryan's ran it through his house and his crews, and I gave it to my knuckleheads, and we've tested it on all the firehouse doors and everything we could, but it'd be easy for me to go to his Instagram, go to his website, find the bio, tell you about the key. But the best thing about having a podcast and having guests on is they get to tell you. So, Trevor, just tell our listeners a little bit about who you are and where you're from, some background on you.
Sure. Hey, thanks for having me on KTP, gentlemen. I'm honored to be here. We tried for a long time to figure this out and work it into our schedules, and I'm glad we're finally doing it. So yeah, super excited to be able to.
Absolutely. Sorry we timed your kids' nap wrong.
Yeah.
They're pretty unpredictable right now.
Right. I get that.
Hopefully we won't hear them screaming in the background.
Oh, it's all good. We love kids.
But yeah. So anyway, my name is Trevor Williams. I am in my mid-30s, and I live out here in Los Angeles. And I guess one of the things I'm known for right now is the Williams Key and the Williams Key Incorporated Company, and we sell entry tools. But a little bit of my background: I grew up as a missionary. I lived in Africa. I lived in Haiti. My dad worked for World Vision, which is a large nonprofit organization that does emergency relief work and some other aid type things. So hopping all around as a kid, and grew up pretty fast in those situations, wars in both Africa and Haiti. When I ended up in California, I was a teenager. I was 15, and I wanted to continue doing health. I wanted to continue helping people like I was doing as a missionary, and firefighting seemed exciting and right along those lines. So I was able to get involved with an Explorer program out here with the Los Angeles County Fire Department. And for your listeners who are not familiar with what an Explorer is, it's a kid who does training and gets to do ride-alongs and spend the night and see if firefighting is really for them or not. And I found out pretty quick firefighting was for me, and I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I eventually went to an academy for Explorers, and I did my EMT, became an emergency medical technician, did some college, did fire science classes, did the college academy, and then started applying everywhere I could possibly get my application in. I traveled all up and down the West Coast, the East Coast. I put in 60 applications, so
oh, wow.
I was all over the place, even the FDNY and Arizona, Texas, Washington, everywhere in California. This was 2008 when I was trying to get hired, so it was a tough time. There's hiring freezes. The economy was in the dumps, and so I was like, I'll just take whatever I can get. I just want to be a fireman. So eventually, I got hired as a volunteer. There's 2 volunteer departments out here in Los Angeles. At least there aren't anymore. So I got to get started as a volley, and I did that for a couple years, and eventually got picked up with the Los Angeles County Fire Department. It took about 7 years since the time I applied to finally get hired on. But I've been with them ever since. I just hit my 8-year anniversary of boots on the ground as a rookie. And I've been at Firehouse 8 for most of my career, which is in West Hollywood. So we have High Rise and Celebrities and Sunset Boulevard and a whole lot of other crazy stuff.
So never a boring shift.
Yeah, never boring shift. Lots of party goers, poverty, rich, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and you know, thank you for your persistence and continuing to go through. A lot of people spend a lot of time trying to get on this job, and many who could have been good firefighters end up quitting. So I could tell just in that first little snippet that you were truly called to serve, and thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was motivated, and it's one of the. I'm hesitant to share with guys who want to get hired now, guys and girls, because my story sounds a little like, oh my God, like discouraging. Like, oh man, that's a long time to wait for anything. Like, you can get through most of your advanced college, before how long it took me to get hired, but. I'm thankful for the time it took, because getting on as an 18-year-old, you lack a lot of life experience. So I was able to gain life experience by working construction in the meantime. And I treated that as if I was hired as a fireman. I used all those core values. I showed up early. I worked hard. I took care of my tools. I threw the ladder like I throw the ladder at the firehouse. I clicked out my extension cords like I click out a hose. In my head, I was a hired fireman. But in the meantime, learning a trade. So I was a carpenter, commercial carpenter, and specialized in doors. So installing doors, which kind of ties into the Williams key. That's where I learned about locks and doors, how they work, and learned about my tools. And I had tons of little specialty tools that I'd make.
Yeah. A lot of the best firefighters, come from that carpentry background. We talk a lot in the fire service about building construction and how does this door work, and how is this a load bearing wall, and what's the roof, and you as a battalion chief, I really look for the guys who have that background, because they're able to give me useful insight on an emergency scene. So I can see how that would be beneficial to LA County and your venture into creating your own tool.
Yeah, I recommend to everybody who's young to pick up a trade, because you get to learn how to work hard, you get to learn tools, learn how to be a critical thinker, a problem solver, and work with your hands too.
Yeah, and funny story, we're already connected despite being firefighters. Ryan and I also started in like an explorer type role. We got in the fire service when we were 16 back in 2003.
Yep.
So both of us were on fire departments as explorers, learning the job, and I remember exactly what you just said. That I caught that bug so early.
Yeah.
And I had no other desire. So, I was very fortunate. I also was applying for jobs in 2008 and ended up getting hired, but there's a lot of my friends that went through a lot of processes to get to this point. So
that was me.
It's Ryan included.
Took me forever.
But yeah, 2008 was a truly rough time. And also one thing I wanted to mention to you, growing up in Africa and Haiti, one of the most beautiful parts of the fire service is our diversity. Where do we all come from, and how do we all become family from different walks of life? So, and I'm sure in LA you know that better than anybody. Yeah. But it probably helps to have grown up in Africa and Haiti, and you have a lot more compassion because you've been around people who don't have anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I spent almost 8 years overseas in some of the poorest countries. So Haiti, for example, is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. It's 565 miles south of Florida, attached to the Dominican Republic. So not many people have heard of Haiti, at least they hadn't before the Haiti earthquake, but they know the Dominican Republic. So together with the Dominican Republic, it makes up the island of Hispaniola. And it's way out there. Spent, almost 4 years there. And we were there during when the government was being overthrown. So really unstable, lots of riots, lots of fighting, shooting, lots of death, and just bad stuff going on. So.
Trevor, I've followed your story a little bit, when we started talking and everything. And one thing that stuck out to me, and I was just like, oh my God, is when you said your friends were getting kidnapped.
Yeah.
I mean, my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a scary thing. So the time that I lived in Haiti, there were the most kidnappings per capita in the world. 100 per week in the city I lived in.
Holy shit.
And it seemed like only a matter of time, like we every day we'd show up to school and somebody, not every day, but somebody would be missing frequently from school. And they'd be like, oh yeah, they got him or her or
Jesus.
whatever.
God.
Um, it didn't always turn out well for those people. And fortunately, like most of the people I know were able to make it back, but very traumatizing. And yeah, really rough country. So it needs a lot of help, still does to this day. But I was actually there in Haiti during the Haiti earthquake as well in 2010. And I wasn't living in Haiti at the time. I just happened to go back after having been gone for 5 years. So I went back a week before the earthquake. My family was living in Haiti. So I went to visit them. And yeah, I was there. It was the most devastating earthquake, one of the biggest natural disasters in modern history. Killed 300,000 people, left 1 million more homeless. And Haiti's only a country of 7 million people, so it had a huge impact on that country. Pretty much almost wiped out the entire island. Everybody was impacted, and my family was living in Haiti at the time. I've got my parents and 2 little sisters, and my mom and both my sisters were in a very large apartment collapse. They're on the bottom floor of a 5-story apartment that hung off the side of a mountain. And that apartment completely pancaked down floor by floor on top of them. And my dad and I were somewhere else. So I was at an orphanage. I was okay. The building I was in got compromised, but did not collapse. Lots of buildings around us collapsed, though. And my dad came and found me hours later in the dark. The earthquake happened in the evening time, and it was a 7.0, so it was like really big, pretty strong for a country with no infrastructure, unreinforced concrete, houses stacked on top of each other up a mountain. So those things came down like dominoes. And Haiti had never experienced an earthquake before, at least not in my lifetime. So people weren't familiar with that concept, really. Anyway, it lasted for 39 seconds, which is a really long time for a major earthquake. After 5 seconds, it's not fun anymore. It gets really scary. So the first couple of seconds, I was like, oh, maybe there's a big Mack truck coming by, barreling down the road and shaking everything. But before long, somebody screamed out earthquake, and everything got real violent. And yeah, buildings came down, dust flying in the air. And
Gosh.
I kind of sheltered in place on the second floor and got ready to jump. I was on a balcony. I was like, I don't want to be in this if it comes down, but I'm not going to jump unless I have to. So waited it out, and then 110 orphans at that orphanage, so we got them all out. And I'd had at that point a little bit of fire training, and I was an EMT, so I knew about like collapse zones and stuff. So we got all the kids sitting on the ground and out of the collapse zone of the house and the walls around us, and waited out. There was hundreds of aftershocks after that, and they're as big as 5.0. So even the aftershocks were bringing down more houses.
Wow.
So yeah, just crazy experience. My dad came and found me later that night, and he told me he had this look on his face like I'd never seen before. And he said he had gone back to the apartment. It had completely collapsed. My mom and 2 sisters were in there, and he did not find anybody alive. So he didn't say they were dead, but didn't sound good. So I refused to believe that they had passed. I believe that God had them in Haiti for a reason, and He was going to protect them. They were doing good work there. So I had some faith that they had made it, but we didn't know where they were, and it seemed like they were inside. So that night, me and my dad made our way up the mountain. All the roads had been. I mean, there's not many roads to begin with; they're mostly dirt, but all the roads had bodies in them and collapsed walls and debris and rubble, and so it was really hard to navigate the roads and the street. But we eventually made our way up the mountain to my dad's pastor's house. We stayed there the night, but could not sleep all night long. Aftershocks were hitting, and I kept thinking about my family. Yeah, it was a really, really tough night. And as soon as the sun rose the next morning, I was up trying to get everybody to let's go find them. Let's go find the family. And my dad's like, no, we got to eat. And he was right. He's like, you need your strength. It's gonna be a long day. You gotta sit, eat. And while we're eating breakfast, he starts talking about funeral plans. And that's when it really got me. I was like, oh man, he really thinks they're gone. And so I got up from the table. I was like, kind of starting to lose my composure a little bit. And I made my way over to the balcony on that house up in the mountains. And it was my first time seeing daylight since the earthquake had happened. So my point of view was a vantage point up in the mountains looking down on the city all the way to the ocean. And it was just like devastation. There's fires everywhere. You could see smoke headers. You could hear people wailing, singing, and the sun was just rising orange and piercing through all the smoke and stuff. And I had no idea how bad the earthquake was before then. But then I saw the entire country just leveled, and you could hear the pain, in the country, and the sobbing and stuff. So that's a very vivid image in my memory that this happened 14 years ago. I still think about almost every day, and that's when I lost it. That's when I started to cry, and that hit me pretty hard. But we eventually made our way down the mountain, and we had to stop at my dad's office. My dad worked for World Vision, so they had some supplies. And I was like, yeah, we got to get shovels and tarps and water and body bags for not our family, but, the other bodies that we might find. So we were at his office for a little bit, and then we started hearing a commotion, some yelling. And they brought in my mom and my two sisters alive. They had been dropped off, and they were covered in debris, limping, bloody, like holding each other and stuff. But
Gosh,
they had all made it.
Wow.
And my youngest sister was 4, and she couldn't see. She had like debris in her eyes and stuff. And my other sister, she was I think 12, and she was the only one with shoes on. And then my mom, in her 40s at that time, was pretty banged up, but able to walk, and they were all kind of helping each other. So me and my dad and the rest of the family all held each other and just cried, and thank God for saving everybody.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, man. Praise God. Like I to the listeners, I had no idea where that story was gonna go, and we talked a little bit off recording, but man, I'm glad you were able to tell that story to us, and I'm sorry that was something your family had to go through, and 300,000 people dead in Haiti. Doesn't matter where they are in the world, like they're still human beings, and I'm truly sorry for everyone who lost their life and all the families that are still probably unable to function in a poor country like Haiti.
Yeah, it made it the poorest country even poorer.
Yeah.
So they got hit pretty hard. So if you want to hear about how my family survived, usually that's the next question.
No, dude, this is your introduction, and this is part of your story. So yeah.
Yeah. So they had just gotten home from school, and normally they kind of they kind of split up when they get home. But on this day, they happen to all be together, talking, discussing the day, and the earthquake started, and they heard floor by floor, super loud, this apartment coming down 5 stories. They're on the bottom floor, and the wall broke open right next to where they were standing, and they all jumped out as the apartment collapsed completely.
Wow.
And it's on the side of a mountain, so now they're rolling down the mountain. The apartment is rolling with them, big pieces of rock and rubble. And they eventually find a tree. And as I mentioned earlier, this was right around dusk, so it's not safe for anybody really to be out in Haiti at night, especially women and young women. So they climbed up in the tree, and they spent the night in the tree for safety. And right away, houses started getting looted. So there's already like robberies going on and stuff as soon as like the walls, came down and there's collapses. So, they didn't want to be around for that. And the next morning, somebody found them. I think a French family with a car found them and drove them to the World Vision office, and that's how we were reunited. But
wow,
pretty incredible story. They definitely should not be alive.
What an unbelievable story.
Yeah, they all got a second chance, but I can. This is a long story. I can continue, or we can switch gears if you want.
So, I just real quick. I mean, so they saved their themselves by climbing a tree.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Could you?
2 of them were
imagine?
barefoot.
Wow.
That's just unbelievable. How high up were they?
I think I remember going back and seeing the tree they were in. They had to help each other up for sure.
Yeah.
I'd say probably 15 feet.
Oh man.
Jesus.
Yeah, nobody's ever asked me that question. That's a good one.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I'm thinking like, all right, how high did they have to climb up? I mean, my God.
That's unbelievable. Well, as I said, man, praise God that your mom and sisters and dad and you were able to make it out of that.
Yeah, I have actually an interesting perspective of how I got a second chance as well. I was supposed to. So one of the reasons I was visiting Haiti was I had set up with the United Nations a training program for a new fire program that they had. And I was like, this would be a good way I can go visit my family, get back to Haiti, haven't been back in 5 years, practice and teach some of my fire skills, maybe build the resume a little bit. And it's going to be a good trip. So with the United Nations, they have, some formalities where I'd already kind of worked it out with them, but they wanted me to come in and do a video and interview and get the blessing, get the ID badge and get scanned in and everything, so it's official. So that interview is set up for the day of the earthquake during the time of the earthquake. And the day before the earthquake, I realized I was kind of wasting my time, not getting straight to work with some of this stuff. So I called them and I was like, hey, do you mind if I come in a day early and do the interview? And they agreed, and they let me come in, and it went well. I got my badge and stuff. But had I had done my interview when it was scheduled, I certainly would have died. That building completely collapsed. 300 people in that building died. Everybody in that building died, and I would have been in it. So that's another little God thing, I think, where my life was spared just, and I didn't know it at the time, but afterwards I was thinking about it, and I was like, oh my goodness, I was supposed to be in this building during this time. So I knew my life got spared too.
Wow. You, right, wrong, or indifferent, whether people believe or not, there's a reason that happened to you, and Jesus is the only reason. So I'm that is a remarkable story, start to finish. Unbelievable.
Yeah, just a victim of circumstance, I'd like to put it. But we made lemons out of lemonade. Is that the right way? No, lemonade out of lemons.
I think that's right. Actually, I think lemonade out of lemonade.
I think everyone listening knows what you're trying to say, though.
we tried to turn a negative into a positive.
There you
I'll
go.
Put it that way. And my family's doing well now.
Good.
They got evacuated out the next day with the Air Force. Needed some healing. But they're all healed up. They did therapy. Had some PTSD they had to work through.
Yeah.
And they go back to Haiti doing a music ministry. So they get like instruments donated, and they go put on a class a couple times a year, like a camp, and teach the kids, some songs and donate some instruments. And that's kind of their way of giving back, and it's therapeutic for them. And then I started a nonprofit building houses for earthquake survivors once I got back to the States. And we built 39 houses so far over the past couple years. Lately, it's been really tough to do anything in Haiti because it's continued to get more and more dangerous. But yeah, we both have our own ways of kind of giving back, and it's therapy for us, but it's also helpful for the country too.
That's awesome.
That's cool. So, and man, that's a tough story to follow
story,
in the aspect of our time with you. Specifically, I think all of our listeners who've listened to this point, and anyone familiar with the tool and the posts that we've had, I really want to know what made you, and describe the Williams key for me, like the whole thought process behind how you came up with that, now that you're on the job, and so on and so forth.
Sure. So, as a door contractor and a guy who installs locks and stuff, I learned a lot of tricks of the trade and how to lock pick, and we'd be making, little shim tools all the time just to try and get into stuff.
Not to interrupt you, but if the general public ever figured out how easy it was to get in a door,
Right.
Man,
Right.
That's wild. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, locks keep honest people honest, right? So if somebody wants to get in and they're motivated enough, they'll do it.
They'll do it for sure.
It's people ask me a lot all the time, like, "Oh, what if a criminal gets a hold of your tool?" I'm concerned, and I just tell them a brick is cheaper. They can break your window and get in, and they don't care about preserving your property. So I don't think that's a concern.
I doubt too many criminals are going to the williamski.com.
Yeah, they don't like to spend money. And I tell people make your own Williams key if you want. That's my goal is to make firefighters better at their craft, better at getting in and being effective. So I'm not here for the money. I just want to make a difference as best I can. And I'm sorry, you asked me to describe the Williams key. So it's a tool for entry, making entry into a door that does not do damage. So it looks like a framing square, and if you want to make one, that's a good place to start. Cut up a framing square. But there's two sides to it. There's a handle with a shove knife on one end, and you're able to grab the strike of a lock with it for an inward swinging door. If you can visualize that strike, oftentimes you can grab it with the shove knife handle and pull it towards yourself and open that door. On the other end of the Williams key, it's an L shape. There's a pointy side to it. I like to call it the blade side. And the blade side of the tool is good for reaching behind an anti-vandal plate. So that would be a plate that runs along the gap of the door, the reveal of the door, and blocks somebody from trying to jimmy the lock. So that's a pretty neat feature because it can still jimmy the lock even with that plate in the way. It's not going to get through a deadbolt, so if you're worried about your own home security, just make sure your deadbolt's locked. But what we find on scene and on the calls we go where we use this tool is most of the time people don't use their deadbolt. They forget, or they I don't know, they just end up not using it. So but that's the Williams key. It's I made it a few years back, and the concept has been around forever. So it's just my own take on a covert entry tool or a respectful entry tool, soft entry tool. There's a million terms out there to categorize the type of tool it is, but basically does not do any damage. And if it is doing damage, you're using it wrong. It's not a prying tool. It's more like a lock pick. So if somebody's having trouble using it on a door, I always recommend you gap that door first. So you can use it as a Halligan or a wedge or a screwdriver. Give yourself a little bit of space to work with, and then just slide that Williams key in there, and hopefully you're able to manipulate that lock. Sometimes you'll have the anti-loading pin on a strike, like a dead latch, will engage, and that'll basically turn your strike into a deadbolt where it won't move, even if you're trying to jimmy it. And so with those, we definitely recommend gapping, because sometimes even 1/8 of an inch of play is enough to deactivate that loading pin. And then another technique would be throwing your shoulder into that door if it's an outward swinging door, and forcing that pin to fall into the strike plate hole, and that'll also deactivate it. So lots of little techniques, lots of training. If you end up buying one, practice with it. And for any of your listeners, I'm always available to email or talk about a door. Send me photos, videos. I'd love to talk you through a door if you're having trouble. Thousands of door lock combinations out there, so it's not going to work on everything, but it's definitely a tool for the toolbox, and it's great, fast, effective, and damage-free when it does work.
Wow. So one thing, just a couple follow-ups there. One thing I love about the fire services is whenever we have a tool issue, firefighters are some of the most critical thinking people that I know. Whenever we have a tool issue, someone's always like, "Oh, I can make one of those." Yeah. And quite literally, you did. And someone like me who doesn't know, excuse my language, I don't know shit about doors, and other than what I've learned in the fire service. So if someone told me to make it a tool to get in with a door, I'd be like, well, someone's already made one. Right. But we're actually talking about someone who actually did make one, and I think that the fire service is such a great place because we have people that can think like that.
Yeah, we run into some specialty doors, or actually elevators. We run into elevators where we're trained to pick elevators. We get elevator rescues in our high rise almost every shift. But sometimes we'll come across a weird elevator or something we're not used to, and we'll have to make a new tool for it. Yeah. And now that's not like a tool you can really sell, because it's like one out of a million doors.
Sure. Specific for that one.
It works on. Yeah, it's not going to be a good tool to market, but yeah, we make stuff all the time.
Yeah, and kudos to your company, the Williams Key. Even without following the page, I've seen ads for the Williams Key, and a couple observations from the ads. One, immediately there's a I hope I'm not going to offend you here when I say this. There's an attractive girl who gets into a gate on the side of a house, and I immediately thought, okay, that is California. And I did not know that you were in California before this interview started. Other than that video, I was like, that's shot in California. I've seen those gates on movies and everything. So,
yeah, the funny story with that. So that girl is actually a friend of me and my wife's, and we had.
I was praying to God it wasn't your wife, brother. As soon as I said that, I was like, man, I hope it's not his wife.
Yeah. Why you talk about my sister like that?
She's single.
So me and my wife owned a spray tan business, and that was one of our model clients. So she would do modeling for us. That was actually, she has a really nice house, and that was actually her house that she gave us permission to film at, and she was able to open her own gate there and whatnot. But yeah, that she definitely turned some heads and
Yeah.
to get some attention. So.
Well, I mean, you want to get firemen's attention, you gotta have a tool, and you gotta have an attractive lady. So you hit it on the head there, and the marketing has been good, even all the way in Indiana.
Thank you. Yeah, so I actually also come from a kind of a marketing background as well. I worked a little bit doing sales for Google as one of my million odd jobs that I ended up doing before getting hired, and so it gave me a really good perspective on how to run a business well. And I'd run into a couple thousand businesses a year, and I'd see what would work and what wouldn't work. And it helped me, one, become good at sales, which is important if you're trying to sell a product. But two, know how a good business should be run. And three, know what's out there in the technology and how the marketing works, and it's constantly changing. So I think between that, my construction background and working on doors and being a fireman, it gave me a really unique ability to kind of create this product, create a company, promote it, and sell it. And it's done really well.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the recipe. And I know you said if anybody wanted to make a Williams key, they could probably do it. But just a notice for all of our listeners: support your brothers. Like, spend the $40 or $50 and support someone who's actually doing something with their life. Especially after hearing the Haiti story and the desire to serve. Like, why you would want to make one of these instead of just go out and buy the Williams key.
Because I will promise you, it is worth every penny.
Yeah.
I mean, when I got it, I actually legit walked around the firehouse and just started opening every door.
Yeah.
I think they were to the point like, all right, dude, we get it.
Yeah.
It fucking works.
When I got it, I was like, oh, this is a framing square. And I don't know construction trades from shit, and I can barely tell the tools. I actually called it a speed square originally, and someone made fun of me. So I love the concept, and I really love how you filmed the video at because in California, you've seen the movies, you've seen the shows, like there's a lot of those gates, and you got to access the back side of the house. So I, as a battalion, I have, since Ryan passed the Williams key on to me before this interview, I started carrying it on my battalion buggy, just because we don't carry a lot of tools, but there could be a time where I got to get in, even on a simple EMS run. So, I've already found it useful, and I would imagine that more people would see it used. I love the blade end. I love the ability just to throw that down and give it a quick hit, and the door was open. It was that quick. Yeah,
no, I appreciate the feedback, and I get great feedback every day. Occasionally, I'll get somebody who's frustrated, who doesn't know the doors or the locks or practice with the tool and bought it to show off to their company and just picked the wrong door, and then, the chief is standing there like waiting to see this guy perform, and he can't, and then they take it out on me. But
I told you before we started the interview that, I gave it to my crew, and my knuckleheads immediately bent it up. I mean, they put it to work.
Yeah.
And they bent it up, and we talked about this off air, but I felt like it was an important point to bring up. All tools on your apparatus have to be maintained.
Yeah.
They have to be properly maintained and kept in working order. And the Williams key is no different. If you approach this and you use it a lot, like a metal wedge or anything, you're going to have to do some tuning. Like your Halligan, you're going to have to tune it up. So I told you that we bent it up, we put it in a vise, put it back straight, and we were back into doors. So
gave it character.
Yeah. I think it looks cool like that.
Yeah. And that's awesome, because that's what the tool is designed, how it was designed to be used. We encourage people to bend it on purpose if they need to access a certain lock, and then you can just reset it and tune it up in a vise. And it's great that you guys were able to figure that out without coming and asking. Oftentimes people be like,
message.
Yeah, and I'm like, no, it's supposed to. And there's some videos out there of me bending it and accessing a lock, and it's meant to do that. So people think it's not supposed to bend, but it is.
Well, before I forget, thanks for sending us one to demo and to use, and obviously we did it for this interview, but I just putting it in the hands of us, gave us more experience at that. So, as not as a podcast host or guest or whatever, as a firefighter, I want to thank you for that, because that's getting outside of the comfort zone.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And any of your listeners, if you do have a key and you have a cool story, let me know.
Yeah.
It's really neat to hear. That's what makes it worth it for me. It's knowing that you got in and prevented a suicide, or you got in time and were able to save a life and do CPR, or whatever it may be. I get to hear these stories from time to time, and it's really special for me. It really makes it all worth it, because I work hard keeping this thing going, and every day, day in and day out for the past few years, it's taken over my life. And I enjoy it. I like the camaraderie and the brotherhood, and being able to talk to guys like you, who I've never met before, but here we are talking shop.
Love it.
Yeah,
all the way across the country. So I love that aspect of it.
Absolutely. And that's going to bring me in my next point after you finish. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead. I'm done.
Because I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to this stuff, and my kid, he's going down the engineering route. He's really interested in how stuff works. I want to know about the manufacturing process. A lot of fire-owned businesses start small, and then sometimes they grow to where they're just managing the day-to-day. They're not actually doing it. So just take a second to describe, how these are where they're manufactured, what kind of work goes into it. I don't want you to go into the financials or anything, but the manufacturing process is very interesting to me.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Let's see. I think we're at the 4th or 5th generation of the Williams key now. In the beginning, we kept making little tweaks to perfect it, and we started out with a 12 gauge steel, which is pretty thick. And it was really pointy too. Guys were cutting themselves on it and stuff. So the next generation, we went to 16 gauge, and we rounded the tip. 16 gauge ended up being way too flimsy and bendy, and guys are actually tearing the handle off when they get it stuck. So not everybody, but there was a few cases where they got it stuck enough, and it was bendy enough to where they pulled the handle off of it. So we're like, all right, 16 gauge, that's too thin. Let's try the happy medium or 14 gauge. 14 gauge seemed to be just perfect. It bended just enough. You're able to manipulate it with your hands if you need to, but it's not gonna tear apart. And it's thin enough to where it gets inside the gap, that reveal of most of the doors. So we settled with 16 gauge steel, and pretty much from the beginning, I wanted them to be black. I've always liked the color black, and it's a little easier to maintain. I think it looks cool. I've always been good at designing and doing graphics and that sort of thing, so I came up with my logo pretty quickly. I've always liked skulls, so I'm like, it's got to have a skull, and the skull can have...
Hell yeah, it's a badass logo.
Yeah, so I think most people get that it's a keyhole, but if not, it is a keyhole, also a skull. And I wanted to be able to engrave the logo on there. So there's a guy at my firehouse who's a pretty techie type of dude, and he had a laser engraver, so he brought it in one day, and he showed me we could just engrave the logo on as long as it's powder coated or painted black. Because the shiny metal, the laser will bounce off. It'll bounce off of if it's a low powered engraver. You need a $10,000-$20,000 engraver to cut into a shiny metal. But I wasn't ready to make that type of investment at that point. I didn't intend on. We should back up a little bit, actually. I didn't intend on ever selling the Williams key. I made it for myself, and it was part of my wizard kit of tools that I carry around with me at work. And I was getting into doors, on every day, and people were seeing me pull out this crude version of a Williams key that I had made. And before long, people said, "Hey, you mind making me one of those stupid tools that you carry?" And they never want to give you a compliment, but so I'm like, well, it kind of takes a while to make one. How about I have somebody fabricate a small batch, and I'll just give them out to you guys. So I think I made 20, for the first batch and just handed them out to guys at my station, people who wanted them or asked me for them. There's 39 firefighters at my firehouse. And so a handful of them got it and learned how to use the laser engraver, did the logo, and before long, a lot more people came back that were on my job, and they wanted one too. And I was like, all right, this started to get a little expensive for me. I'm going to have to sell it to, I'm going to have to charge you. So
yeah, I can't keep just giving you guys this.
Yeah. So then I made like probably a batch of 100 and I sold those. And after that, it was off to the races. It just took off. And I was like, all right, I guess this is turning into a thing. So I ended up buying that engraver off my buddy. And I started doing custom name engravings too. So the KTP key that you guys got, that was with a laser engraver that I've got at my place. And I still have the original engraver. I have 3 of them now. But it really sold the product for guys and gals to be able to put their name or their company on the key. We love to customize stuff and have, take pride in our station or our rigs. So yeah, we've done, I think, over either 12 or 1,300 custom engravings now at this point. And I've done all those myself.
Wow.
So that's something I'm probably going to get away from at some point.
Yeah.
It's time consuming. I've had to raise prices on it because everybody, ended up wanting it. And I was like, all right, this is just getting too much for me.
Sure.
Too time consuming. So I doubled the prices. It slowed it down a little bit, but it's still like keeping me very busy. And as far as manufacturing goes, this stuff is all made in America. Factory is out here in Los Angeles, and it started with laser jet cutting the steel, and now I believe they do a water jet cut. And then it's a black powder coat, and then now the logo is screen printed on, which I think looks a little bit nicer. And if you want your name on it, that's still laser engraved. So that's the process. Everything is handled by me for the most part. The fabrication work is outsourced, but I fill the orders, and it's getting to the point where I can't handle it anymore. Like it's becoming too popular, too many orders per day. Great problem to have, but I'm going to need to find a solution for that. So I'm looking at some fulfillment warehouses and things of that nature to kind of take some of the load off my back. And now I get huge orders. I get military contract orders. FBI has ordered. Navy SEALs have ordered. You name it, all 50 states, and then about 15 or 20 countries internationally. So it's out there.
That's one thing I was going to ask you. You have noticed that it's not just firemen using this tool, right? Like, I listened to one of your podcasts, and it was, like you just said, military cops, ambulance crews. Yeah.
I make a list of like all the industries that it pertains to now. But locksmiths love it. What else? We got, all the military branches, real estate agents, sometimes they forget their keys, get locked out and stuff. Repossession people, bounty hunters.
Wow.
So some pretty cool, like, niche industries. Security guards, of course, janitors. There's tons. There's tons of people that really benefit from this. And it's cool to see. Like, sometimes it's like an industry where I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that, that could work for you pretty well or whatever.
So is it just you doing this? I know you said you were looking at different ways and it was getting to be too much, but is it a one-man show from start to finish now?
Oh, wow.
Yep. I do all the customer service, the marketing, the shipping,
Yeah.
And I'm also a full-time fireman, so it's been keeping me pretty busy.
Yeah, so the reason I brought that up is exactly what I talked about earlier. Spend the $50 and buy one. Don't
Right.
try and make your own.
Support the brother.
Because brothers are out there grinding on their days
Hustling,
off,
yeah.
trying to raise a family, and trying to make this job we all love better. So spend the money.
Because it is worth it.
Thank you. I appreciate
And it's made in America. It's a fireman is putting his touch on something, and the only way we teach the next generation is to do that kind of stuff, to
Absolutely.
innovate, to step outside of your comfort zone. So, man, that's fantastic. I know I had written down how did it end up in the hands of firefighters, and you kind of talked about that. You kind of talked about your guys would see it and everything like that. I'm a big tool guy. Even when I got promoted to battalion chief, we didn't have a Halligan for me to shut off gas. We didn't have anything on there. So, I start putting little tools on there, and eventually people are like, "Where'd you get that at?" And I've done that with metal wedges over the years. I've been very blessed to be tied with axe head threads, and so like I work with a lot of different people that come out with stuff. So I think that truly the only way to get tools in the hands of people are to make them and bring them in, like Hugh Halligan did when he made the Halligan.
Right.
Like people probably were like, that is weird.
Yeah.
But I think that's awesome. And what started in L.A., this job is so much the same no matter where you go in the country. The houses look different, the weather is better, but this tool goes from L.A. and now is being used all over the fire service, EMS. You said realtors, so I mean that's a pretty good testament to your hard work there, pal.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been quite the journey.
Yeah.
So the big question is too: how many have you sold to this day?
So I'm. This is a guess, and it's in the ballpark, but around 30,000.
Oh my gosh!
Jesus, that's
And
unbelievable.
all by yourself.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
That's unbelievable, especially when you consider like LA's run load. Like that's you're working a shift, you're trying to raise a small family, and you're churning out 30,000 units. So
Yeah.
man, you should be extremely proud of yourself. I know based off the little time we've had that you're a humble guy and a servant of our Lord, but you should be really proud of yourself, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that 30,000, that's just Williams keys. I make other products too, and the Williams key has been like the platform that kind of got my name out there. So now I can make stupid little other stuff that normally people wouldn't bat an eye at, but like, hey, you want a Williams key wedge? Like now, I've got a store with the apparel and the stickers and everything. And one of the little products that I think is underrated, but I really like it, and I try and send everybody a sample of it with their key. Is I came up with this emergency door hanger.
I saw that.
And, yeah, so it's kind of a courtesy notice to the public if we ended up making entry into their unit and nobody was home, but their fire alarm was going off or whatnot, and we had to go investigate. You can just leave that hanger on the door when you leave and just be like, hey, fire department's here. Everything's okay, no big deal. Like, we just want to let you know because we knocked over your flower pot while we were in there. We didn't want you to think you got burglarized.
That's the least of your concerns.
So, you come home, it's unsettling if things are out of place and you're like, what the heck happened? Like, and I'm sure there's like millions of homes that a fire department's been in and like people never even knew, so, or they just felt uneasy when they came home and they're like, something's off. So that's just a little helpful thing. And they're super inexpensive, and I try and give one to everybody just to test out, see if they like it. But that's one of those little simple things I'm kind of proud of, and it's just one more product in the store too. Yeah,
I'm actually I'm scrolling on your website now. If our listeners, they can go to williamskey.com and browse the catalog of one thing I want to know based off just the observation on there. What came about? I know you made the original one with the framing square. What came about the folding one?
I was getting a lot of requests. Guys want to be able to fit them in their turnouts and stuff. And
okay.
It actually took a lot of engineering to come up with a folding version of the key that worked and kept the blade out of. Kept the blade still functional, I guess you could say. So it has a sliding handle, and it keeps that nut out of the way of the reveal in the door. So it's kind of nifty, and you can use it even without the handle. You can pull it up, and the handle folds down, and there's a nice tactical MOLLE case you can purchase for it.
Yep.
So a lot of our like SWAT and SEALs and breachers and whatnot, that they enjoy the tactical case that you can have with it. So that one's been pretty cool too.
Yeah, that's I was seeing on there you have door jams with your logo on it too. I have a guy gave me a door jam, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. The door jam guy, he came around to FDIC and he was like, try one of these. And I was like, that is freaking fantastic, because now in the world we live in, we don't want the door to close all the way, but we want it to close.
Yeah.
For flow path reasons. So, there are so many applicable tools, and I'm overwhelmed at the conversation based off how we started the conversation to where we ended up with the tool. But I think it's a testament to your carpentry background. If you look around your firehouse, you're going to find an expert in something. And
that's the beautiful thing about the firehouse. Somebody's good at cooking. Somebody's good at construction. Somebody's good at lockpicking.
Are you on a truck or an engine?
A truck. So
I figured as much. Forcible entry is your nature, so I figured as much. Truckies usually like to break stuff. You're going with the respectable entry route.
Yeah. Well, hey, here's the thing. I love breaking stuff too. There's a time and place for that. So I just make sure I'm picking the best tool for each job.
Absolutely. Perfect. Absolutely. Is there anything else you want to tell us about the Williams key? Anything you got coming up? Anything exciting down the pipe?
Yeah, I mean, I always have a few cards up my sleeve. There's a couple new products I continue to work on.
You don't have to release them if you don't want. I was just,
Yeah, no. I can't say what they are, but there are definitely, be on the lookout. There's one that should have been out before Christmas, but we had some setbacks, so it should be out, I'm hoping, in the next month. And then I got at least one more that's pretty unique. That I'm looking forward to developing and release. But the Williams key itself has just been doing so good that it's hard to get away from it.
Yeah,
like that one keeps me so busy that it takes away my time where I can develop other stuff. But hopefully the Williams key one day is like a firehouse recognized name, and you see the skull and you just know, oh, that's a Williams key skull. Like, yeah, that's a good tool, or that's a good brand, or whatnot.
Yeah, well, not only because you're on our podcast, but hey, as long as I'm around, as long as I'm doing this, the Williams key is in my repertoire of tools. So we'll obviously help spread the word. I'm actually looking at your Instagram right now, and a couple things you've said. If you can't tell that's a keyhole, you have a problem, because that's a great looking logo, and I can instantly tell it's a keyhole.
Good. Yeah, there's some people that should just stay away from the internet and buying the tool in general. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you go to the Williams key on Instagram, if there's a link to the website, but more importantly, we've already talked. There's the pinned video up at the top is the attractive female. So any of you guys who are wanting to see what we were talking about, I'm not lying to you. So it's genius marketing.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So the Williams key on Instagram is the handle. The Williams key on YouTube. Facebook, we've had some issues with due to marketing, because we do our marketing through Facebook.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
We've lost our page, so we had to make a new one, and we made a new one, and always having issues with Facebook.
Thanks a lot, Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, it's funny because people will challenge my company. They're like, "Oh, this is some like foreign, new company that's trying to push some product that they ripped off or whatever." And their Facebook page has only been open for a month, and it's like we had to make a new page. Like we have another page. We've been around for a while. Like, so people come up with all sorts of wild stories.
People love to talk.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Lots of comments every day.
Well, I know you have two young little girls that don't get a lot of time with their dad based off the tool production and being a firefighter. So I don't want to hold you up any longer. I do want to thank you. The earthquake story was incredible, and something I needed to hear. It kind of gives me a sense of that there's someone above me controlling the strings. So and
it's just great to hear guys' stories.
Yeah, for sure. It's the beauty of the podcast.
Yeah, that's what this is all about. Is everybody's got their own story, and some of them are.
Yeah, so just if you're not familiar with us, we're like a leadership podcast. We try and have people on that are gonna teach something you can use the next shift. You fit right into that mold. You can come on and you can use the Williams key. You can go buy it. It'll be at your house, depending on where you live, 7 to 10 days. The next shift, you're using it. So, but B, any of our listeners, dive into the reason you got on the job is to serve others. Yep. So, I think that you've hit our mark in as far as teaching us something. So,
well, thank you. I love to hear that, and it was great spending time with you two gentlemen.
One last thing,
you bringing me on.
Our third host would be upset at me if I didn't. I'm not going to do his quote he does, but I am going to ask you if you could sit with one person on a park bench, past or present, someone who's no longer here. Who would that person be?
Oh, I'd have a lot of questions for Jesus. I think I want to sit with him.
For sure.
You're the first one that said.
Yeah, you're the first one that said that, and every time I've thought the exact same thing. I would want to talk to Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, I try and talk to him every day, but, to sit next to him would be great.
Fantastic.
Well, Trevor, we're going to sign off, but if you could, just go ahead and stay on the line, and, we'll chat again as soon as we sign off here, if that's okay with you.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, guys, thanks for tuning into the Kitchen Table Podcast. As always, like, share, repost the podcast. 5-star ratings. Those get us in the hands of other people.
That gets our show out there.
But if you didn't like it, give me a 3 or a 2. If you want to say Tony talks too much, I get it. But 5-star ratings, sharing the podcast, that gets us out there to other people, which is what we want to do. We don't really want to make money on this podcast. We just want to talk to firemen.
Yep. And head over and get your Williams key. You guys will not regret it.
Yep. WilliamsKey.com.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Kitchen Table Podcast. We hope you've enjoyed our discussion on firefighting, the importance of training, and the incredible bond of brotherhood that unites firefighters. If you'd like to stay connected with us and access more insightful conversations, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to spread the word, and remember, stay safe out there, because together we're stronger. Until next time, take care, stay tuned for more inspiring stories from the front lines of firefighting.